from Habitat America. This training will be recorded. Thank you so much. So if you could hold all of your questions until the end and use the Q&A section at the bottom of your screen, we would greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much. So this is Christina Bolliard from the Maryland Department of Disabilities. And I'm going to go first with the presentation on the HUD 811 program itself. Just a couple of minor housekeeping things. Like Lakeisha said, everybody is muted. If you want to ask a question, please either type it in the Q&A or raise your hand, and I will unmute your line so that you can speak. So Karen, I see you, she's having, but it's saying she needs to be let in. I don't have any icons coming up where people are trying to, where it's requesting to be let into the meeting. So I'm not sure why that's happening. My only suggestion would be maybe try, closing out all of her screens and reopening them and trying to log back in. Maybe that will work, hopefully. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. Give me just 1 second, everybody. My computer's running just a little bit slow with the PowerPoint. Okay. Share my screen. Okay, so leasing a HUD 811 project rental assistant unit. For the wait list that we use for the Section 811 program, we use an online registry that is called socialserve.com. It's secure. It's an online system that screens for the eligibility of the program for case managers to enter applications onto the wait list for the housing programs that their clients would be eligible for. In that pre-screening tool, it looks at the date of birth, an individual's Medicaid number, income, the household size that they have for whether it's one person, 2 people, 3 people. There's 2 questions on the screening tool for criminal background, and it will ask if the individual needs to register with the lifetime sex offense registry, and it will ask if the individual has ever been convicted of methamphetamine production on a federally assisted property. If you answer yes to either one of those questions, it will not allow the application to move forward. If you answer no, then the application will move to the next step. There's a section on the eligibility screening for counties and jurisdictions that the individual is interested in living in. 5 counties can be selected. Up to 5 counties can be selected in that section. And then there's also a section for the support services and programs that the individual is either currently enrolled in or has applied for. And then there's a section for their current living situation. All of that information is needed in order to move to the next screen for the pre-screening of that applicant. There's usually at least 3 pages of information that goes through, if everybody is familiar with that tool. For the leasing process, the Department of Housing and Community Development will let us know the property management company for the property and when they expect the property to be, the construction will be completed. And then 6 months prior to the completion of the construction, we're given a date of when we will start those leasing activities. So then we have that intro meeting with the property management company. We review the eligibility for the 811 program, how referrals are made, the outreach that we do for the wait list. They will provide us with property information such as, is it an elevator building? Is it a garden style walk up? How many units are accessible? When's the completion date? When do they need all leases signed for their tax credit purpose? They'll provide us with the application process, the lease application, the tenant selection plan, any addendums they have that they add to their lease, community rules, things like that. Once all of that is finalized and we are doing the outreach to the wait list, we, depending on the timing, if we have a couple of months, we'll generate an interest list. So we'll start reaching out to case managers on the list, find out if their clients are interested in applying to the property. If the timing is a little farther along, once we know someone's interested, we'll send the application packet out to the case manager, have them work with their client to get that completed and returned to us. Usually within a 14-day turnaround time, they'll return that application with the ID and a valid ID and social security card. And then we will typically set up, again, all of this is dependent on timeframes, usually weekly or bi-weekly calls with the property management company to go through to see what the status is of, the construction, the time frame, how it's going with those applications that we've submitted. What paperwork is still needed from, from some individuals, and all of those things, just to see where things are in the process, to make sure everything is moving along and the property management company is getting all of the documents that they need so that they can do their lease up piece. Okay, so the selection process for how we sort the wait list when we are ready to create either that interest list or to do the lease up is based on where the units are located. So if, let's say, for instance, the property is located in Montgomery County, I will go into the wait list. I will sort the wait list by Montgomery County. I will look at the wait list will get sorted by that priority group. So if anyone is interested, is not aware of the priority groups for the wait list, I can go through those real quick. Priority 1 individuals are individuals that are coming out of nursing facilities. It is nursing facility residents, individuals coming out of either a chronic hospital or coming out of a state residential center from DDA. Then we have our second group, which is individuals who are either at risk of going into a nursing facility or living in substandard housing, things like that. Our third group is individuals who are either in a DDA group home. They could be in a residential rehab program through the Behavioral Health Administration. They could be coming out of a alternative living unit through the brain injury waiver. And there are a select few assisted living facilities through the Department of Health when individuals are receiving the community options waiver or community first choice. And then our fourth group is individuals who are homeless And then that is even sorted by the Hearth Act. If you're looking for more information on those priority groups, we can send that out to you. And then we look at the date and time of the application. So all of those things are used when we sort the wait list when we're ready to lease up at a property. So the applicant is selected for the unit. We send out that email to the case manager to find out if somebody's interested. If they're interested and they get that application, they complete the application, send it back to me, and then we send it to the property manager. Then the property manager will conduct a separate, it could be an interview. It will definitely be a background check, which could include credit history, criminal history. It will include rental history. They do an EIV report and any third-party income verification, such as banking or any income that is received from social services. It could be even something that, like, student status, full-time student status at a college. All of these responses that are coming back for the property are crucial. They are very important. They are, because all of these things have to be timed properly so that people are not missing out on housing opportunities, and they have the ability to complete all of the steps in the process. Okay. So approvals and move-ins. Once we get the list of individuals who are being referred to the property, who have submitted applications, we kind of go into a even finer listing of referred individuals, and we provide the property with a list of the applicants who can be offered units. And there's a list that's provided to the property based on the priority category, the date and time of the application, the applicant's readiness to occupy the unit, and we even look at the accessibility features of the units to make sure that it's going to work for the individual. The property will offer the unit to the individual after they've contacted or after they've received this referral list. Most properties will send out an acceptance or a welcome letter so that the individual have their address. It could have the security deposit. It will have the lease signing date. It would have most of that information. So, and especially for a lot of the individuals coming out of nursing facilities, because all of that information is needed to start the transition process and have time to do their plan of service and things like that. And then the lease signing date is scheduled. So for the Section 811, there is a special HUD 811 lease, and there is a special HUD 811 move-in inspection form. Those are provided to the property. And I think we have, here's the first page of the HUD 811 lease. It is its own separate lease that is to be used by each of the properties for this program. We'll send out all of this information, so you'll have the link to go directly to that lease so that you can make sure that your clients are signing the correct document. This is a copy of the move-in, move-out inspection form. This, again, we'll provide this link to you guys so that you can see the actual document. And I just wanted to say one more thing. I actually should add this to the PowerPoint. There's also a document for an addendum to the HUD 811 lease, which is the 120-day medical leave addendum. It covers individuals who are out of their unit for at least 120 days. They still need to pay their rent and their portion of the utilities, but it will hold the unit for them. So the unit cannot be taken away from them for at least 120 days. And there's a separate addendum for that. And I will make sure that we add that to the document that we send out to everybody today for the recording and the PowerPoint. All right. Did we have any questions along the way? Does anybody have any questions about the actual 811 program, eligibility, the wait list? If you raise your hand, I'll unmute you so that you can speak. Oh, I see. Okay, wait a minute. Somebody. How do I get to that list?
It says are all units to apply on the waiting list 1 bedroom?
No, so the Section 811 program is made up of 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms. That is all that we have. So Lynette, I'm unmuting you. I don't know if that was your question or if you have a separate question.
Bonnie Mitchell has a second question. It says, can an applicant move in with a family member that does not have a disability?
Yes, so there can be multiple people in a household. As long as their combined household income does not exceed 30% of the area median income for the county that they're interested in residing in. And I can also provide you with the group a document that goes over the HUD income limits at 30% for all of the counties.
One additional question. We have an 811 unit resident that wants to transfer to a larger unit, 3 bedrooms. Is this allowed?
No, there are no 3-bedroom units within the 811 program. Okay, so I'm going to go, but the living caregiver income doesn't count. Correct. If an individual applying to the program has a live-in aide, a live-in caregiver, the income from the live-in aide does not count towards the total household income. Janebo, how many of these units are available and how long is the waiting list? So currently, there are about 237 units identified and leased up. Right now, we are in the process of leasing up with a property in Prince George's County called Gateway at Peerless. And we have 2 units left to fill at Flamingo Place in Baltimore City. Those units have already have individuals identified. We're just waiting for the units to come online. And as far as upcoming properties, there's probably about 5 additional properties participating in the 811 program. Off the top of my head, I don't have a number. It's less than, it's going to be, Lakeisha, I don't know if, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I believe it's going to be less than 25 units with those 5 properties, if I can recall. We do have a third funding from HUD that we just received back in November. And that should be enough funding to possibly identify about 100 units. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, I think it's a
About
little
100
over
units.
100.
Yeah. It's
And
going to depend on where the units are identified for
Mhm.
the counties. So roughly about 100, and there are about 1,600 people that are currently on the Section 811 wait list. As far as, like, we don't give out wait list numbers, and we almost would never give out timeframes. It's impossible to let somebody know when or if they would be housed. So we just don't give out wait list numbers. Megan, do they have to go through you guys to add someone, or is that through us? So individuals have to be referred by either that case manager, support planner, resource coordinator, whoever the individual is that they're working with that helps them get connected to those supports and services in the community. That's the individual that would place or would pre-screen their client and add them onto the wait list. Yes, through social serve, yes. So if anybody on the call today does not have access to social serve already, just send me an email all of our contact information will be on in the email that we send out. So just contact me if you don't already know your login and password, but we'll get you set up with an account. That's not a problem.
And there's another question,
Okay.
Christina. What happens if an 811 resident becomes overoccupied? Do they have to move?
Yes, the occupancy standard, like they've exceeded the occupancy standard for the unit.
That's
Yes.
how I'm understanding
Yeah.
it.
So yes, because it would be, I mean, Karen might want to piggyback on my answer, but it would be a lease violation if you had more individuals in the unit than is allowed through that occupancy standard.
Yes, and that should be outlined on the resident selection criteria for the community, or whatever document is similar to that document should review what the occupancy limits are for the particular unit size.
Megan, I'm not sure I understand your question. This is in the case as someone wants to add a boyfriend and child. I'm not sure exactly what that means. I'm going to unmute you so you can explain. 1 second, I gotta find you on the list. Okay.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. So I have an 811 resident who wants to add her boyfriend and his child to her household. She's in a 1-bedroom apartment. And from her caseworkers or associates have already said that he can be added, which that no one has recollect to me as far as any of the process, as far as getting him added. So I was just a little confused because when I originally asked the question, it's had to go through caseworkers and stuff.
So your client is already in an 811 unit?
Yes.
Okay, after this conference call, can you call me directly? I just put my phone number in the chat.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. All right, anybody else? Well, if anybody thinks of any questions along the way, I'll keep monitoring the chat, or you can email me directly or give me a call. My phone number is in the chat as well if you want to call directly. All right, thank you, everybody.
Christina, do you want me to jump in?
Sure. Did Lakeisha, did you already introduce Karen?
I did
Okay.
at the
All
very
right.
beginning.
Thank you.
Do you have are you able to share your slides on your end, Karen? Okay.
Yes.
Awesome.
It actually says that the host disabled participant screen sharing.
Hey, this is Chelsea. Let me see if I can. Okay, give it a try now, Karen.
Yep, that's perfect. All right, can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Wonderful. All right, just a second. All right. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Karen Scott. I'm a regional property manager with Habitat America. I'm very proud to have been part of the first 811 program in Maryland, Riverwoods at Tollgate, which leased up in December 2015. And since then, I've helped facilitate the leasing of 70 apartment units with the 811 program. Today, we're going to discuss the process of leasing an 811 unit from start to finish. The first step to leasing your 811 units, as Christina mentioned, is to have the kickoff call with your entire 811 team. This team includes members of the property management team who will be processing the applications, as well as individuals with the state of Maryland who will be working with your project. You may wish to include both site-level leasing team members, regional property managers, corporate and compliance team members, and any other staff who will be working in some capacity with the 811 units. During this call, you will review your RAC, which stands for Rental Assistance Contract. The Rental Assistance Contract outlines the total number of 811 units in your project and initial contract rental rates for each unit. This call offers the opportunity to ask questions about the program and the process, get to know one another, and outline expectations for the lease-up process on both sides. You will also discuss the application packet intended to be shared with applicants, which must be reviewed and approved by the 811 team with the state. Once you have created the application packet and it's approved, Christina Bulliard will share the packet with case managers and applicants. The case manager and applicant will complete the packet and return it to Christina, and she will email the completed packet to your leasing team for processing. Unlike applications for other types of units, site teams cannot hand out this packet to interested applicants on their own. Applicants interested in 811 units must be referred to Christina Bulliard to learn about the process, and only application packets received from Christina Bulliard may be processed for consideration for available 811 apartments at your property. The application packet should contain the resident selection criteria or similar document with information about occupancy standards, income requirements, the background screening process and rejection process, as well as unit-specific information such as bedroom count and square footage, program preferences, reasonable accommodation request procedure, PEP policy, and other pertinent information related to the application and approval process. Also included in the rental housing application form, applicant or co-signer consent form, and Privacy Protection Act letter, which gives permission to the manager to obtain consumer reports and verify information provided in the application. Before returning the completed application packet to Christina, case managers should fully review all documents to be sure every question has been answered, each box is checked, and that copies of photo ID, birth certificate, social security card, and income documents are clear and easily read. It's also a good idea to double check the photo ID is valid and not expired, and the social security numbers are all accurate and match on all forms. After receiving the completed application packet and a passing screening result, an interview will be scheduled by the leasing team with the applicant. Case managers often assist in advance of this interview by collecting information on behalf of the applicant and often participate in the interview to further assist the applicant. The purpose of the interview is to exchange information about the community, answer questions the applicant may have, review and verify information on the application, collect supporting documents, and have the applicant sign any additional forms needed to continue with the application and verification process. If you've ever wondered why we need to ask the questions we ask and verify the information we verify, the HUD 4350 manual is going to give you all the answers. All the rules for processing the applicant files, including example calculations, can be found in the HUD 4350 manual. You can find all this information online through a quick Google search of HUD 4350. In this slide, you can see the HUD 4350 states that owners, in our case management agents, are required to verify all income, assets, expenses, deductions, family characteristics, and circumstances that affect family eligibility or level of assistance. This also outlines the requirement for applicants and adult household members to sign the forms consenting to review and verification of the information provided so that we may determine program eligibility. If we think of the final product of a file approved for move-in in terms of baking a cake, all the documents and the questions are essentially our ingredient list. Each of these items, the application, background screening, consent forms, interview, income verification, asset verification, deduction, and expense verifications, all must be incorporated to successfully reach the goal of a qualified household approved for move-in. Just like the ingredients in a cake, our file documents have expiration dates. As seen in this slide, per the HUD 4350, the verifications we receive expire after 120 days. If the verifications are more than 120 days old, the owner must obtain new verifications. The exception to this being proof of age, disability status, family membership status, and citizen status. Once we have the completed application and a completed interview, it's time to calculate income to determine whether a family is eligible for assistance and the amount of rent the family will pay. As the HUD 4350 states, we must use current circumstances to anticipate income. The owner calculates projected annual income by annualizing current income. Some of our 811 applicants' current income may change after they move in. For example, an applicant might receive a smaller amount of income while in a nursing facility because a portion of his or her income is paid directly to that facility. In this example, you will use the portion of income received by the applicant at the time of the application to calculate initial eligibility. But it is critical to remember to complete an interim certification shortly after move-in. As in this example, the income will change once the applicant becomes a resident of your apartment community. Other calculation questions might be raised if an applicant is considering making a job change or asking for a raise. However, unless the applicant has an offer letter or can otherwise demonstrate a tangible change in income, these circumstances are more in a what-if category and therefore would not be considered in calculating initial eligibility, since there is no documentation to demonstrate a change of income at this time. While income may be pretty straightforward for calculation purposes, assets can sometimes be more confusing. The HUD 4350 outlines exactly what is counted as an asset and how to calculate the income from the asset. The HUD 4350 defines an asset as an item of value that may be turned into cash. Checking and savings accounts are very common assets. Interest paid from a bank account is considered income from an asset. Any banking accounts associated with the household, regardless of the amount of money in the account, must be verified, even if the account only has $2 in it or if it contains a negative balance. Under 5K forms cannot be used for 811 files. As the example in this slide shows, cash or items of value not earning interest are also considered assets, such as cash kept under a mattress, in a box in a closet, or cash in a wallet, which we call cash on hand. Necessary personal property, such as a car and clothing, is not counted as an asset. You probably already know that the 811 residence portion of rent is based on 30% of his or her annually adjusted income. But you might be wondering what exactly is the adjustment and how do we arrive at it? Per the HUD 4350 manual, there are 5 possible deductions that may be subtracted from annual income. The remainder after these deductions are subtracted is called adjusted income. To arrive at this figure, we use the calculations from the figures we have received for income and assets, and then subtract qualifying deductions. The result is the adjusted income. The term adjusted is used because the total income calculation has now been adjusted to reflect these deductions. Households participating in the Maryland 811 program may qualify for a deduction for dependents, a child care deduction, and a disability assistance deduction. Families in which the head, spouse, or co-head is disabled also qualify for a deduction for unreimbursed medical expenses. In addition to the possible dependent deduction, child care deduction, and disability assistance deduction, the HUD 4350 provides a thorough, although non-exhaustive list of examples of unreimbursed out-of-pocket medical expenses that may qualify as deductions. To be considered, these expense costs must exceed 3% of the applicant's annual gross income. This list includes, but is not limited to, services of recognized healthcare professionals, services of healthcare facilities, such as lab fees, x-rays, and diagnostic tests, blood, oxygen, alcoholism and drug addiction treatment, medical insurance premiums paid out of pocket, prescription and non-prescription medicines when prescribed by a physician for a particular medical condition, transportation to and from treatment and lodging, eyeglasses and contact lenses, dental treatment, attendant care or periodic medical care, including nursing services and assistance animal care and upkeep, as well as scheduled payments on accumulated medical bills. Often the site team performing the interviews and calculating the income, assets, and deductions is the same team responsible for addressing property concerns, staff concerns, and resident concerns. Managing all these issues while also putting together a file and calculating the income, assets, and expenses can feel a lot like juggling flaming batons while playing whack-a-mole. At the same time, all the while, angry strangers yell at you and demand your attention right this minute. This is why we submit our files to a dedicated compliance team for review and approval. The compliance team can carefully review and confirm program eligibility and accuracy of calculations, away from the distractions of the site. This is a critical step to make sure the household receives accurate rental rates and all eligible deductions, and also ensures the state agency later reviewing the files will find error-free and accurate information. It's not impossible to have a file approved upon the first submission to the compliance department, but for all the reasons mentioned earlier, the file is often sent back to the site for corrections and clarifications after the first review by the compliance team. Common issues that cause delay and file corrections include expired photo ID, changes in income or assets, or findings of income and assets not previously reported, changes in household composition, such as new members added or reduced, a new 504 modification or accommodation request, social security numbers that do not match, missing or incomplete verifications, and expired documents. Once all of the corrections and clarifications have been received, the site team will resubmit the file to the compliance department for review and approval. And voila, all our ingredients came together and our cake, or in this case, our eligible households file, is complete and approved by the compliance department. And we can start the next steps towards the move-in day. In advance of move-in day, as Christina noted, she will provide the order for the applicants for scheduled move-in. Be sure you do not plan move-in dates before receiving this list and discussing the planned move-in dates with Christina. Additionally, prior to scheduling the move-in date, your compliance approved applicant and their case manager will need to receive a welcome or approval letter that describes all funds that will be due at the time of move-in. This letter is critical for the case manager and applicant to start collecting these funds, as well as making arrangements for furniture and household items. Unlike other residents, our 811 residents may not have a single article of furniture or household staples, and the case manager may need time to help them find such items. Included in this letter should be the security deposit amount, prorated rent, the date and time the applicant should arrive on the day of move-in to meet with the site team to complete the move-in inspection, sign the lease and all other related documents, and receive keys. While an advance inspection of the designated 811 rental unit by an outside agency is not part of the 811 leasing process, it is required that the new 811 resident inspect his or her apartment prior to signing the lease and other documents. Lastly, at some point after move-in, a meeting will be planned between the case manager, resident, and 811 team to review the lease community rules, resident handbook, and other tenancy-related matters to ensure our 811 resident is well prepared for success in his or her new home. But wait, the process doesn't end here. We get to repeat the entire thing each year at our annual recertifications. And of course, for interim certifications, in the event that the resident has a change in income of $200 or more at any time during the course of the year. This concludes my presentation. Thank you everyone for joining today, and I'll open the floor to questions.
There is a question from Rebecca Grayson. She says, does the applicant tell you they want to live in 8 first, so the correct bedroom size is found for her, or later?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the answer is sometimes. Of course, we want to know that in advance, but there are times where at some point in the process, we've already started, and then we learn that there is a change like that. And of course, that creates delay. And so it's best to get all of that, as much of the information in advance as possible, to avoid those delays and having to shift things around later in that process.
Okay. And then there is a question from Linda. Is that 200 or more per month or per year?
I think it's per month, but that always gets me, in all honesty. Who do we have here? Who are our compliance people who can clarify that? Although it's also available in the HUD 4350 for clarification.
I'm sorry,
Someone's
what is the
probably
200?
popping it in per month, total of $2,400 per year. Thank you, Diane Letzo. She's one of our compliance team.
Awesome.
We would get nowhere without that team.
And there was another question that asked about burial cost. Okay, are burial accounts counted?
Burial plot, that is where the verifications come in. So anything that's checked off of the box as a yes on the original application and during the interview, this would all be clarified. Verifications will be sent, and generally what comes down to being included as an asset is if it can be liquidated for cash. So can somebody sell that burial plot? And in return, can they receive cash if they were to liquidate it? And so it is a yes on the question, a yes and a no. And but we would always send that verification to confirm that it could in fact be liquidated.
And then another question, will the unit be inspected yearly?
So the question comes down to by whom. So of course you have your management agent, your management company that's going to be performing their inspections. And you would want to follow all of your standard guidelines for your preventative maintenance, your housekeeping inspections. And then as far as is the state visiting, that is often determined by the agency and whatever the circumstances may be, like COVID, that might be coming up at that time.
Right. Okay, and then we have another question. Can we use streamlining for assets after the move-in like we do for other Section 8 residents?
Do you mean, I guess I would want some clarification on that, but I would say refer to your compliance team. I'm not clear if you mean like an under 5K or what you might mean with that, but I would always say check with your compliance team as far as how they would like these things managed. There has been some leniency that has come up about that use and about the streamlining, but the rules change so often and often have to do with the first year versus the second year versus the third year. So always double check with your compliance team.
Another question, do we need to verify disability like we would for a typical Section 8 resident wanting those deductions?
The disability is inherent in the fact that they've been referred because it has already been verified. However, typically those applicants are also receiving SSDI or other income that, at least in my experience, also inherently verifies the existence of that disability.
And then Lisa is actually clarifying what she's meaning when she's saying streamlining by verifying assets every third year if under 5,000.
Yeah, that sounds right to me. However, once again, I would just always caution to check with your compliance team. I know I had been performing a recertification and they were reminding me, oh, you can do that now, which for me going way back in the day was new. So I always like to follow the rule of, and this is what I've been taught through my compliance team, is if you follow the strictest of the guidelines, then you're never going to regret that. So worst case scenario, if you verify, that's never going to be a bad situation for you. Whereas if something were to change and you've taken the more lenient route, then you might find yourself in a pickle.
Okay, we have another question. Can you explain a little more about the out-of-pocket expense of 3%?
No. So, we actually did a deep dive presentation previously where it really went into the nitty-gritty of that. So that's a pretty big subject, but essentially, if your out-of-pocket expenses aren't exceeding 3% in the first place, it's not going to be considered. So you have to know what that 3% number is. And then let's say somebody's saying, well, I pay out of pocket for a prescription that's $5. That's not even going to count essentially as a result. So hopefully that makes sense. But this is also where the 4350 goes into very clear examples of exactly what you're going to do, how you're going to do that. Okay. So that is the best resource, is just Googling HUD 4350 and taking a look through it. And then of course your compliance team. And again, I think we could always do another deeper dive, but it's a long conversation. There's so many questions. One can just lead to another, can lead to another.
Right. Okay. Are interim research required for both increases and decreases in income?
Yeah, so the interim recertification, unlike tax credit, where there's no opportunity to modify the rent on the basis of trying to keep it at that 30%. That's the beauty of the 811 program and the benefit that it's offering to these residents, is if you have a change in income, either a decrease or an increase, it's going to keep on that 30%. So if your income decreases, you're still going to keep that 30% as what that person's paying. And so that subsidy is going to be increased for them. And that's amazing. That's an amazing thing that we can do for them. So yeah, you want to handle it. You want to do that interim either way.
And then I believe this may be the last question. Are visual inspections acceptable? I have an 811 resident that have asked that we do not enter her unit because she is going through chemo, COVID-related concerns.
So this would, at least, again, based on my training with my company, these are requests, and of course, with almost any request, the best practice is ask the request to be put in writing or put it in writing yourself as you're receiving it. What I hear in this is the potential of this falling into the category of a 504 related request. And so I would be following my policies and practices in that way, because this would be essentially a request for a change in what might otherwise be the standard guidelines of the rules we're following. So that would be the accommodation, a request of an accommodation on the basis of XYZ. And I see somebody asking about the rent portion changing. The contract rent is not going to change, but the portion of the rent that the resident is paying is always going to carry through with that 30%. So theirs can fluctuate, and the subsidy will make up the difference of that to arrive at your contract rent. And every year, an OCAF has to be submitted. So that's where you're requesting the increase in your contract rent. So you have the opportunity to still collect additional rent after what the initial rack rental rate had been. But the resident will always pay 30% of their annually adjusted income as their rental rate portion.
Okay, there's one more. Are service therapy animal recipients allowed, like Section 8?
Are
Service animals allowed?
So, we don't, I want to back up a little on that. So you want to return to your policies and procedures, and what should be noted is that the question of service assistance companion animals stay within the laws of what is being stated at that time. Again, these are things that change, and that falls into a whole separate category that would have nothing to do with your funding request and has almost everything more to do with your fair housing circumstances and 504 requests.
And the other request is just to have a copy of the slides. And I do believe that all of the slides will be sent out to all of the participants.
Yes.
Any additional questions? Oh, I'm sorry. She said that she was asking about receipts for service animals.
Oh, so okay, yes. So, I have had included in the request, food for the qualified animal, veterinarian services. I've seen all kinds of stuff. And again, that often, as far as since the HUD 4350 lists examples, but again, it is non-exhaustive, that is where that partnership with your compliance department is so critical, because you may want to reach out to them and say, gosh, I've got a receipt here for a squeaky toy. does this qualify? So yeah, definitely involve your compliance department in those really particular receipts that you may receive.
All right. I believe that we have answered all of the questions that were posted. Great presentations. Are there any additional questions? Not seeing any additionals come through. Okay, I believe that's all. All right, well, thank you for your presentations, and thank you for all of you attending. Again, all of the slides will be sent out to all of the attendees, as well as the recording will be posted on MDOD's YouTube link Thank you so much and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.